Hello and welcome to BOI Weekly. I'm Kayode Alayode. Today on the program, we are at the headquarters of the Bank of Industry in Lagos here. And we're here to discuss issues relating to how the Bank of Industry is handling its existing and potential clients in the large enterprises sector of the Nigerian economy. And I'm here to discuss that issue with no other than the divisional head of large enterprises, Bank of Industry, Mr. Joseph Babatunde. Thank you for coming on BOI Weekly.
Okay.
Now, governments both at the federal and state levels are beginning to look inwards and look at how they can generate revenues internally, and they're looking into mining and agriculture, and that says a lot about them looking towards large enterprises and industries within their localities. What will be the role of the Bank of Industry in this new drive?
Well, interestingly, even before now, if you recall that the former administration launched a scheme called the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan, precisely in February 2014. It's a very wonderful initiative. And that document identified some critical sectors of the Nigerian economy where we have both comparative and competitive advantage. It started by identifying the agro sector as a very, very important sector. And of course, it also identified solid minerals as very important, and of course, gas and petrochemical, and of course, engineering and technology. The bank took a cue from that policy, and in 2014, we restructured the operations of the Large Enterprises Directorate. And as we speak now, the directorate is structured in such a way that we have an agro-processing group, which is in charge of harnessing and converting most of this raw material in terms of adding value to them, so that they can not only be consumed locally, they can also attract export proceeds. Aside from that, we also have a solid mineral group, which is also actively involved in the exploitation and processing of solid mineral. Then we also have a gas and petrochemical group, which is in charge of when you want to intervene in the areas of fertilizer, refinery. In fact, in terms of gas distribution, compressed natural gas, in terms of making sure that most of the projects within the downstream industry, we can also actively participate. So essentially, we have structured in line with that Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan, which I believe is a very wonderful policy, and if it's well implemented, it's going to really assist in terms of converting the local raw material, adding value to them and converting them to finished products that can be exported. And in any case, that's also tied to the issue of forex. Because for us to be able to generate foreign exchange, because it's a critical issue now. And why? Because the economy is still highly dependent on import. Almost everything people want to import. And except we start adding value to our own domestic production and being able to export also and generate foreign exchange, this problem may continue for quite some time. And that's why the federal government is just going through the right direction of saying, let us harness our local resources, let's add value, let's be able to export. If you observe what's happening in the cocoa space in the last couple of months, you observe that even state governments that have not even shown any serious interest in this area are beginning now to see the reality that they need to harness the potentials in the cocoa industry, because it's an area that we have a lot of indigenous players, and in fact we got some information that when you export cocoa raw, you hardly derive up to 20% value. When you export it and it gets out there and it's converted to chocolate, they take about 80% of the value. And in fact, this chocolate is exported back to us. Part of what we use are hard-earned forex, even to import. So there's just, the only way out really is to harness this local raw material, be in a position to meet local market and also export to earn foreign exchange. And Bank of Industry has already structured and positioned itself to be able to actively play in those areas that we have competitive and comparative advantage.
some of your clients have actually accused commercial banks of withholding monies that the Bank of Industry has deposited with them for drawdown for these businesses. Are you aware of this development?
It reflects on that, but we need to put things in proper perspective. The situation was not that serious in the past, but the issue of delay in release of funds, I think started a couple of months ago when the forex situation became critical. Don't forget that most of these loan beneficiaries will have to import the items of equipment. They have to establish letters of credit, which have to be backed up, by forex. So the challenge really is that these banks also will have to shop for forex to be able to back up the letters of credit. And in doing so, a lot of time they have to also approach the central bank, go through the due process and normal process. So the situation now is that it's often a little bit difficult for them to be able to meet up through the bidding process the quantum of the forex required by some of these customers. So this has contributed to some of the delay, being experienced. And in fact, it comes back to the same issue of inadequate forex. If it was to be a situation whereby they are buying some of this locally, we won't have that kind of experience of delay. So basically, because they have to go through establishing letters of credit, and they require foreign exchange to do this. And we all know the problem. That we are going through in terms of foreign. In fact, that's why the central bank is now giving priority, to those that want to import, items of plant and machinery or raw material for the manufacturing sector. That's why they are giving them priority. But I still believe that, except this issue of forex is resolved, there might still be some delay from the part of this commercial bank, in disbursing finally to some of these beneficiaries.
You have talked so much about foreign exchange and how much pain we're experiencing, especially with the industries at this time. But what singular other issue would you say is bedeviling large enterprises in Nigeria?
Well, apart from the foreign exchange that we talk about, like I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, there are some basic industries that an economy cannot do without. Any economy without a vibrant steel sector, without a vibrant petrochemical sector, there is hardly any way industry will not still continue to depend on imported inputs. And as long as we depend on this importation of the basic input in the production process, there will always be these challenges by these industries. But apart from that, like we are all aware of infrastructural issues, particularly, mass transportation. When we were growing up, the rail was very vibrant. You see goods being moved from Lagos to Kano, without having to hire so many trailers and what have you. So we still need to work a lot on mass transportation.